Part 1. The conference room fell silent as council representative displayed the latest reports on the main screen. Over 200 formal complaints from qualified providers across 47 different species, all saying the same thing. Their clients no longer wanted them. The children were asking for humans instead. "This is ridiculous," said council member, his four eyes blinking in sequence. "Humans have only been part of the galactic community for 3 years. How can their methods possibly be superior to ours? My species has studied child development for 10,000 years." Tentacles curled in what her species used as a shrug. "The data does not lie. Wherever humans provide services, cooperation rates increase by 300%. Behavioral problems decrease by similar margins. And most puzzling of all, the children specifically request human caregivers by name." "It must be some kind of chemical influence," suggested another council member. "Perhaps humans emit pheromones that affect young minds." "We tested for that," replied. "Nothing unusual. I propose we investigate directly. I will observe human methods myself and report back." The council agreed, though several members remained skeptical. Left immediately for Transit Station, where the largest concentration of human workers resided. According to records, many human students earned credits by providing services while studying. It seemed like a logical place to start. The station's directory listed 37 human babysitters. Selected one at random. Emma, age 22, engineering student, 5-star ratings from 12 different species. The appointment was set for the following day. When arrived at the observation point, she found Emma already engaged with 3 children. They were a proud warrior race, and these particular triplets had a reputation. Their last 5 caregivers had quit within days. Their parents had tried everything: strict schedules, reward systems, even meditation training. Nothing worked. Yet here was Emma, sitting on the floor surrounded by the 3 young, and they were listening to her every word. "All right, brave explorers," Emma said, her voice full of energy. "Our mission today is critical. The Great Toy Nebula has exploded, scattering ancient artifacts across the entire habitat. We must recover them before they're lost forever." The smallest, barely 3 years old in human equivalent, raised his claw. "What kind of artifacts?" "Excellent question, Scout," Emma replied, using the child's name with a title. "We're looking for building blocks, art supplies, and story tablets. Each one is precious. Each one must be returned to the artifact chamber." She pointed at the toy chest in the corner. "But that's just cleaning up," said the middle child, suspicion in her voice. Emma leaned in close, her eyes wide. "That's what it looks like to civilians, but we're not civilians, are we? We're the elite recovery team, and look." She held up a building block. "This isn't just a block. It's a piece of the ancient constructor set, lost for generations. Can you imagine how important this is?" The children stared at the block with new interest. Emma continued. "And here's the challenge. We have exactly 10 minutes before the nebula field collapses. That means we need to work fast and work together. Scout, you take the blue sector. Navigator, you've got the red sector. Commander Zax, you're on the green sector. I'll coordinate and handle any difficult recoveries. Is the team ready?" All 3 children shouted "ready" and scattered across the room, suddenly enthusiastic about picking up toys. Watched in amazement. She had seen these same children refuse to clean their play area for hours. Their parents had resorted to doing it themselves while the children watched. Yet now they were racing around, competing to see who could find the most items, treating each discovered toy like a genuine treasure. Emma maintained the narrative throughout. "Excellent work, Scout. That's the 7th sacred tablet. Navigator, watch out for the hazard zone near the couch. Commander Zax, outstanding reconnaissance." 10 minutes later, the room was spotless. The children stood proudly next to the toy chest, breathing hard but smiling. "Mission accomplished," Emma declared. The Council of Engineers will be very pleased. You've saved countless artifacts today. Now our next mission is equally important. We must refuel at the nutrition station. Snack time, asked Commander Zax. Snack time, Emma confirmed. But not just any snacks. These are power-ups for our next adventure. The purple berries give you energy shields. The protein cubes boost your strength. And the hydration liquid keeps your sensors working perfectly. The children ate without complaint. Something their parents had reported was usually a battle. Made extensive notes. After the snack, Emma transitioned to what she called quiet time. But again, she transformed it into something else. Every great explorer needs to record their discoveries, she explained, handing out drawing tablets. Your mission is to document what you found in the toy nebula, draw the artifacts, tell their stories. The galaxy needs to know what you accomplished today. The children settled down immediately, focused on their drawings. Emma sat with them, asking questions about their artwork, praising their creativity, helping them feel like their quiet activity mattered. When the parents arrived to collect their children 2 hours later, interviewed them immediately. How was today? The mother asked, clearly expecting problems. They were perfect, Emma said truthfully. We had great adventures. Adventures, the father's crest rose in surprise. They cooperated. Completely, they're natural explorers. You should be very proud. After the family left, approached Emma directly. I must understand your methods. What you did today should not have worked. Those children are documented as extremely difficult. Emma looked confused. Difficult, they were great kids. A little energetic, but that's normal. You transformed cleaning into a game. You made eating into a narrative. You convinced them that drawing was important documentation. How did you learn these techniques? Emma laughed. I didn't learn them anywhere. That's just how you watch kids. You make things fun. Otherwise, they get bored and won't cooperate. But where did you study this approach? What training program teaches these methods? Training program, Emma shook her head. This is just normal stuff. My mom did it with me when I was little. I did it with my younger cousins. Every babysitter does this. Felt her understanding shift. Every human babysitter uses these methods. Well, yeah, I mean, some are better at it than others, but basically everyone makes games out of stuff. It's just easier that way. Kids like games. Everything's more fun if it's a game. But how do you decide what game to play? Emma thought about it. I don't know. You just look at what needs to happen and think about how to make it interesting. Cleaning up is boring, so you make it an adventure. Eating vegetables is boring, so you make them power-ups. Going to bed is boring, so you make it a journey through space. Whatever works. Recorded everything. This is instinctive for you. I guess I never really thought about it. Doesn't everyone do this? No, said slowly. No, they do not. Most species teach children through instruction and discipline. Play is seen as separate from learning. What you did today, most caregivers would consider it inefficient. They would simply tell the children to clean, eat, and rest. When the children refuse, they would implement consequences. Emma looked horrified. But that sounds miserable for everyone. Why would you make it harder than it needs to be? Because we do not see it as harder. We see your method as unnecessarily complicated. But the kids had fun, Emma protested. They did everything they needed to do and they enjoyed it. How is that complicated? Realized she had discovered something profound. May I observe you with other children, different species? Over the next week, Emma allowed to watch her work with 7 different species of children. Every time, the pattern repeated. Emma transformed routine tasks into games, stories, and adventures. She never just told children what to do. She made them want to do it. She turned chores into quests, meals into power-up sequences, and bedtime into epic voyages to the dream dimension. With children, she created elaborate point systems and competitions. With children, who loved water, she turned bath time into an ocean expedition. With crystalline children who grew bored easily, she invented increasingly creative narratives that held their attention completely. Interviewed Emma extensively. Why do humans have this ability? What evolutionary purpose does it serve? Emma considered the question seriously. I read once that human children learn through play. Our ancestors needed to practice hunting, gathering, building, fighting, all that stuff. But practicing is boring. So the kids who made practice into games, who could make anything fun, they learned faster and better. It became part of how we think, I guess. So this is a survival trait. Maybe. I mean, humans have always been good at adapting. We can live almost anywhere, eat almost anything, figure out solutions to problems. Part of that is being creative, seeing possibilities, making the best of situations. And all of that starts with play. Compiled her report over the following days. The conclusion was undeniable. Human methods achieved superior results because humans possessed an instinctive ability to transform any activity into an engaging experience. What other species viewed as separate concepts, work and play, humans blended naturally. They could not help but make things fun. It was how their minds worked. The report sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. Some members refused to believe it. Others wanted to immediately study human methods. A few suggested that perhaps every species had been approaching child development incorrectly for. But the children had already decided. Word spread through galactic networks faster than official reports. Alien children everywhere heard about the humans who made everything fun. They told their parents. They asked questions. They wanted human babysitters too. The demand exploded overnight. Within a month, every human on every station who was willing to babysit had a waiting list. Parents offered huge payments. Some even offered to relocate to wherever humans were available. And the humans themselves remained somewhat confused by all the attention. To them, they were just doing what came naturally, making the best of things, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary, playing games because life was better that way. They had no idea they had just started a revolution that would change how the entire galaxy raised its children. Part 2. Ambassador Wei rubbed her temples as another delegation entered her office. This one represented the Crystalline Collective, a species whose bodies were made of silicon-based compounds that refracted light in beautiful patterns. Their representative, designated Crystal 749, projected colors that indicated extreme frustration. Ambassador, we must speak about the human babysitter situation. Please take a seat, gestured to the specially designed furniture. Though I should warn you, you're the fifth delegation today with the same concern. Then you understand the urgency. Our families are desperate. Human providers are booked for the next 6 months. Some of our citizens are offering mineral rights to entire moons just to secure a single human babysitter for one evening. Sighed, I'm aware. Last week, the Hive Mind Conjunction proposed a trade agreement where they'd give us access to their advanced medical technology in exchange for a guarantee that humans would staff their centers. And will you accept? We're humans, not a commodity to be traded. Our people make their own choices about where they work and who they work for. Crystal 749's colors shifted to something that's translator interpreted as embarrassment. Of course, forgive me, but you must understand this goes beyond simple convenience. Our children are changing. They ask questions now. They want to know why they must do things, not just how. They say that human babysitters make them feel like their activities matter, like they are part of something important. Leaned forward, interested despite her exhaustion. That sounds positive. It is, but it's also concerning to many parents. We raised our children the same way for thousands of years. Now, suddenly, that way seems insufficient. This was the conversation had been having repeatedly. The arrival of human methods had created an unexpected cultural crisis across dozens of species. Children who experienced the human approach wanted more of it. They became less willing to accept traditional methods. Parents felt inadequate. Traditional providers felt obsolete. "What do you think we should do?" asked. "Teach us," Crystal 749 said simply. "We want to learn the human way." 3 weeks later, the first human training center opened on Station 442. 200 alien students attended the initial session. Emma found herself standing in front of a classroom full of beings from 15 different species, all staring at her expectantly. "Okay," Emma began nervously. "So, today we're going to talk about how to make any activity engaging for children. The first thing to understand is that kids aren't trying to be difficult. They're just bored. Our job is to make things interesting." In the front row raised his claw. "But how do we know what children find interesting?" "That's the thing," Emma said. "You don't need to know specifically. You just need to add elements that make activities feel important, challenging, or fun. Usually all three." She pulled up a display showing a messy room. "Let's start with a basic example. You need children to clean up. What do most species do?" "Tell them to clean," answered a student. "If they refuse, implement consequences." "Right, and does that work?" The students looked at each other. Several admitted it did not work well. "Okay, so here's the human approach. You don't tell them to clean. You make cleaning into something else. You say we're archaeologists excavating ancient treasures, or we're racing against time to save the artifacts, or we're organizing supplies for a mission. You give the activity context, purpose, story." "But that is deception," protested a student. "They are not actually archaeologists. They are simply cleaning." Emma paused. This was the difficult part to explain. "It's not deception. It's imagination. The kids know they're cleaning, but you're giving them a reason to care about cleaning. You're making the action feel meaningful instead of arbitrary." "But cleaning should be done because it is necessary," the continued. "Children should learn discipline." "They can learn discipline," Emma said, "but they'll learn it better if they're engaged. Think about it this way. Would you rather do a boring job you hate or an interesting job you enjoy? Both jobs get done, but one makes you miserable and one makes you happy. Why not choose the happy version?" This seemed to land better. The students made notes. Over the following hours, Emma demonstrated techniques. She showed how to turn getting dressed into preparing for battle or selecting the perfect disguise. She explained how to make meals into fuel for adventures or potion brewing. She taught them about point systems, achievement levels, team challenges, and narrative progressions. But as she taught, she noticed something strange. The alien students were learning the mechanics, but they struggled with implementation. They could follow her examples exactly, but when asked to create their own games, they faltered. A crystalline student demonstrated the problem perfectly. Asked to make bedtime engaging, she said, "Children, it is now time to initiate sleep protocols. This is important for your biological development. Please proceed to your rest stations efficiently." "That's still just telling them to go to bed," Emma said gently. "But I added the reason why it's important. I explained the purpose." "Right, but you didn't make it interesting. Try this. Brave explorers, the sun is setting on our adventure world. We must return to our dream ships to recharge our energy for tomorrow's quest. The dream dimension awaits, full of mysteries and wonders. Who's ready to discover what adventures wait in their sleep?" The crystalline student's colors flickered with confusion. "But I do not understand where you found those concepts. Dream ships, dream dimension. These are not real." "No, but they sound cool. They make going to bed feel like the start of something, not the end. Kids don't want things to end. But if you make sleep into its own adventure, they're more willing." "How did you know to say those specific words?" Emma struggled to answer. "I didn't know. I just thought about what would make bedtime sound exciting and said that." This was the pattern throughout the training program. The alien students were brilliant, capable, and eager to learn. But they had to consciously think about something that came automatically to humans. Creating games, Inventing narratives, adding excitement to mundane tasks required enormous mental effort for them. For humans, it was as natural as breathing. Dr. Sarah, who had been studying the phenomenon, gave a guest lecture during the second week. What we're observing is a fundamental difference in cognitive development, she explained to the class. Most spacefaring species evolved in relatively stable environments. Your ancestors faced challenges, certainly, but they were predictable challenges. You developed intelligence to solve specific, recurring problems. Your education systems reflect this. They're about transmitting known information efficiently. She pulled up a holographic display showing human evolutionary history. Humans evolved differently. Our environment was chaotic, unpredictable. We faced new problems constantly. The humans who survived weren't necessarily the strongest or the in traditional ways. They were the most adaptable, the most creative, the ones who could look at a situation and imagine possibilities that didn't exist yet. A student spoke up. So humans are more intelligent than us. No, Doctor said firmly. You're brilliant at what you do. Your species builds technology we can barely understand. You solve mathematical problems that hurt human brains to contemplate. But humans have one specific advantage. We're exceptionally good at pattern recognition and creative thinking. We see connections that others miss. We imagine alternatives instinctively. And this relates to how play is practice for creativity. When children play, they're learning to imagine different scenarios, test possibilities, and adapt to changing rules. Most species lost this trait because they didn't need it. Your ancestors succeeded by following established patterns. Human ancestors succeeded by breaking patterns and inventing new ones. So we cannot learn the human method. You can learn the techniques, Doctor said, but it will never feel natural the way it does for humans. That's not a failure. That's just recognizing that different species have different strengths. Despite this sobering assessment, the training program continued. Alien students practiced diligently. They created with game ideas. They memorized narrative templates. They studied human children's media to understand how humans structured stories. Some showed real talent. A young named created an elaborate point system for daily activities that children loved. A named invented water-based games that worked perfectly for her aquatic species. A warrior named used his military training to design team challenges that taught cooperation. But even the best students admitted it was exhausting. What took Emma seconds to improvise required them minutes of careful planning. Where humans naturally adapted games on the fly, aliens needed time to think through options. Meanwhile, human babysitters across the galaxy continued to be in ridiculous demand. Online forums filled with stories. I watched a kid for 3 hours, wrote user StarSitter23. Turned homework into a decode ancient messages game. The kid learned more than in a week of regular classes and asked for extra assignments. With triplets, posted Aquaminder. Made it a submarine adventure hunting for lost treasures. They didn't want to get out of the water. Parents were amazed. Watched a crystalline child who wouldn't eat anything, shared another user. Told her different foods gave different magical powers. She tried everything to collect all the abilities. Parents said she'd been a picky eater for years. The stories. Human babysitters were achieving results that seemed impossible. Children who had behavioral problems for years suddenly cooperated. Kids who hated learning became eager students. Families who had been struggling found peace. And the humans themselves remained somewhat baffled by the intense reaction. "I'm just playing pretend with kids," Emma said during one interview. "This isn't revolutionary. This is just normal." But it was revolutionary, because what was normal for humans was extraordinary for everyone else. The Galactic Council convened another session, this time to address the broader implications. Presented her expanded findings. The evidence is overwhelming. Human play-based methods improve cooperation, learning retention, and emotional well-being across all tested species. Children exposed to these methods show increased creativity, better problem-solving skills, and reduced anxiety. Are you suggesting we restructure our entire approach to child development? Asked skeptically. I'm suggesting we at least consider it, replied. Our current methods work, but they could work better. The human approach isn't just about making children happy. It's about making learning effective and natural. But humans have been in the galaxy for only 3 years. How can we trust that their methods are sound long-term? Because they've been using these methods on themselves for their entire evolutionary history, Doctor interjected. She had been invited to address the council. Humans don't separate play and learning. They're the same thing to us, and it's made us adaptable, creative, and resilient. You asked us to join the galactic community because you valued those traits. Now you're seeing where those traits come from. The council debated for hours. Some members resisted changing methods that had worked for. Others argued that better methods should always replace good ones. A few suggested that maybe the galaxy had been doing child development wrong all along. Finally, they reached a compromise. Play-based learning would be recognized as a valid alternative to traditional methods. Species could choose to adopt human techniques or continue their own approaches. Research would continue. Data would be gathered. It wasn't a revolution, but it was a start. As the session ended, approached Doctor privately. Do you really think play is that important? Doctor smiled. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you did something just for fun, not for work, not for a purpose, just because it was enjoyable? Thought carefully, I cannot recall. Exactly. Most species don't play as adults. You see it as childish, but humans never stop playing. We play games, we tell jokes, we imagine scenarios, we make work fun whenever we can. And I think that's kept us adaptable in ways others aren't. So humans have an advantage. In this one area, yes, but you have advantages too. You're better at sustained focus, better at following complex procedures, better at careful analysis. Neither approach is wrong, they're just different. But the children of the galaxy had already made their choice. They wanted the human way. They wanted learning to be fun. They wanted someone to make the ordinary feel extraordinary. And the humans, without fully understanding why it mattered, were happy to help. Part 3. The crisis began on Prime, the of the galaxy's most feared warrior species. They had conquered 12 systems through military might. Their soldiers were legendary for discipline, strength, and absolute obedience. Their culture centered entirely on martial excellence. And their children had gone on strike. It started at the elite military academy, where the offspring of the highest-ranking officials trained from age 5. The curriculum was brutal: physical conditioning at dawn, tactical studies all morning, weapons practice all afternoon, combat simulations until dark, no breaks, no play, no distractions. It had produced perfect soldiers for 3,000 years. But 6 months ago, a merchant's child had been cared for by a human babysitter on a trade station. The child told other children. They told their parents. Word spread to the academy. Now 200 young sat in the training yard, refusing to move. We want learning to be fun, announced X, a 7-year-old who spoke for the group. We want it to be like humans make it. We will not train the old way anymore. Supreme Commander N stared at the children in disbelief. In 3,000 years of Academy history, nothing like this had ever happened. You will return to training immediately. This behavior is disgraceful. No, X said simply. We have heard that learning can be enjoyable. We have heard that training can be exciting. We want that. We will not continue until you give us human teachers. The standoff lasted 3 days. The children refused to eat, train, or cooperate in any way. Their parents tried everything. Threats, punishment, reasoning, nothing worked. Finally, in desperation, The Sovereign Clutch made an emergency request to the human ambassador. "We need a human provider immediately," the message stated. "We have a situation." Forwarded the request to the human babysitter network. Most people declined. Dealing with 200 striking warrior children seemed impossible, but one person volunteered. Age 34, former elementary school teacher, current graduate student in education. He had been watching the situation unfold with fascination. "I'll do it," he told, "but I need complete authority over the training program while I'm there. No interference." "They're not going to like that. Then they can handle 200 angry kids themselves." The leadership agreed, though it physically pained them to do so. Arrived on Prime 2 days later. The academy was intimidating. Everything was designed for warfare. The buildings looked like fortresses. The training grounds were from weapons practice. Adult, each standing 8 feet tall with scales like armor, watched with barely concealed contempt. Supreme Commander N met him at the entrance. "You are the human who will fix this situation." "I'm going to try," said, looking up at the massive warrior. "But first I need to understand something. What's your goal with these kids?" "To train them as warriors, as we have always done." "No, I mean what's your ultimate goal? What do you want them to become?" N seemed confused by the question. "The finest soldiers in the galaxy, strong, disciplined, capable." "Do you want them to think for themselves?" "Of course. A soldier who cannot adapt to changing situations is useless." "Do you want them to work well in teams?" "Obviously, soldiers must coordinate perfectly." "Do you want them to solve problems creatively?" "That is essential for tactical success." Nodded. "Then we're going to get along fine. Take me to the kids." The 200 young waited in the training yard, still sitting in protest. They watched approach with cautious interest. He was smaller than any adult. He carried no weapons. He wore simple clothing. He sat down in front of them. "Hi everyone. I hear you've been having some problems with training." X spoke up. "We want learning to be fun, like humans make it." "Okay, but I need to understand something first. Do you actually want to be warriors?" The children looked at each other, surprised by the question. Several nodded. "You want to be strong, fast, smart, capable." More nods. "Then we're going to make that happen. But we're going to do it my way. And my way is going to be harder than what you were doing before." This caught their attention. X narrowed his eyes. "Harder." "Much harder, because you're not just going to do what you're told anymore. You're going to understand why you're doing it. You're going to compete against each other. You're going to push yourselves beyond what anyone expects. And you're going to do it because you want to, not because someone ordered you to." Stood up and addressed the entire group. "Here's how this works. You're not students anymore. You're warriors in training, and every warrior needs a war to fight. So starting today, you're divided into teams. Each team has a name, a color, and a banner. You'll design them yourselves. Every activity you do earns points for your team. Physical conditioning, tactical studies, weapons practice, combat simulations, everything has a point value." He pulled out a display showing an elaborate scoring system he'd prepared during the flight. At the end of each week, the winning team gets privileges, better food, free time, choice of activities, and here's the important part, the teams change every month, so you can't just ride on 1 or 2 strong members. Everyone needs to contribute. Everyone needs to improve. The children listened intently. This wasn't what they expected, but it was definitely different from before. "But that's just the structure," continued. "Here's what makes it real. Every physical conditioning session is now a tournament. You're competing to set records, to beat your previous times, to achieve new personal bests. We keep track of everything. Everyone can see who's improving and who's not." "What about tactical studies?" asked the student. "Tactical studies become scenarios. You're not just learning about historical battles. You're fighting those battles. I give you a situation and your team has to solve it. The team with the best solution wins points, and the scenarios get harder every week. Weapons practice. Grind, weapons practice becomes quests. Each weapon type is a different martial art with levels of mastery. You start as a novice. You work your way up through apprentice, journeyman, expert, and master. Each level has specific skills you must demonstrate. Everyone can see what level everyone else has achieved. You're trying to master as many weapons as possible. One of the adults watching couldn't help himself. This is absurd. You're turning warfare training into games. No, said, turning to face him. I'm making warfare training something these kids actually want to do, which means they'll work harder, learn faster, and achieve more than they would under your system. Want to bet on it? The adult warrior growled but said nothing. Looked back at the children. So here's the question, do you want to do this? Because it's going to be hard, really hard. You're going to work every day, you're going to push yourselves. You're going to fail sometimes and you'll have to try again, but it'll be your choice. You'll be working toward goals that matter to you. You'll see your progress. You'll know you're getting better. So what do you say? The silence stretched for a long moment, then X stood up. We'll try it. The other children stood as well. Excellent, said. Then let's begin. First task, form teams of 20. Choose your teammates carefully. You'll be working together for the next month. The children immediately began talking, negotiating, forming groups. The adults watched in amazement. 5 minutes ago, these kids had been refusing to cooperate with anything. Now they were actively organizing themselves. Over the following weeks, transformed every aspect of the academy. Morning physical conditioning became the Warrior's Gauntlet, a series of competitive challenges. Tactical studies became the Strategy War, where teams competed to solve increasingly complex scenarios. Weapons practice became the Path of Mastery, with elaborate progression systems. But did something else too. He made sure the children understood what they were learning and why it mattered. He explained how physical conditioning built the strength they needed. He showed how tactical thinking saved lives in real combat. He demonstrated how weapon mastery gave them control over situations. He didn't just make it fun, he made it meaningful. The adult watched skeptically at first. They expected the children to lose discipline to become soft, but the opposite happened. The kids worked harder than they ever had before. They woke up early to practice skills they wanted to improve. They stayed late to study tactics for upcoming scenarios. They pushed themselves during physical training because they wanted to set records, not because anyone was forcing them. And they were learning faster. After just 1 month, administered the same tests the previous students had taken. The results shocked everyone. The current students scored 30% higher on tactical knowledge. Their physical performance had improved by similar margins. Their weapons was advancing at twice the normal rate. Supreme Commander N called to his office. I do not understand what you have done. I gave them a reason to care, said simply. Your old method told them they had to train. My method makes them want to train. When someone wants to do something, they do it better. But this is playing, this is not serious. Is it? Pulled up the latest performance data. Your kids are learning more faster with better retention. They're more creative in tactical scenarios. They work together better. They're more resilient when they fail. By every measurable standard, they're becoming better warriors than previous generations. So tell me, what's not serious about that? N studied the data for a long time. Finally, he said, perhaps I was wrong about human methods. You weren't wrong. Your method worked. It produced good soldiers. My method just works better because it's more compatible with how children learn. That's all. But the impact went far beyond that one academy. Word spread throughout society. Other families demanded the human approach. Then other species heard about it. The already high demand for human educators exploded to impossible levels. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. This time, the vote was unanimous. Play-based learning would be officially recognized as the standard recommendation for child development across all species. Traditional methods could still be used, but the human approach was now the default. Gave the closing statement. For we believe that learning required discipline, structure, and strict instruction. Humans have shown us something different. They've proven that learning is most effective when it's engaging, meaningful, and enjoyable. This isn't weakness. This is wisdom. The Council established training programs across the galaxy. Human educators were recruited to teach others. Universities began studying play-based pedagogy. New methods were developed that combined traditional knowledge,